Welcome back to America's Retirement Headquarters, the home of the Retirement Guys formula and America's Medicare Associates with Nolan Baker, Scott Kerschner, Troy Kerschner. 419-794-3030 is the phone number. The website is arhq.com. It's a good time to remind you if you missed the first half of the show or you want to catch up on previous editions of America's Retirement Headquarters, all there for you to check out on demand. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Just search for America's Retirement Headquarters. All the topics there for you to check out at your leisure. Do you ever walk into a restaurant but notice something was off that sent you right back out the door? Well, maybe you can relate to this new list from BuzzFeed of the red flags that indicate you shouldn't eat there. They include, if you notice that your feet are sticking to the floor, if there's a sour or disinfectant smell, the menus appear to have never been cleaned. As a financial advisor, guys, you're also watching out for red flags when it comes to people's plans. What are some that might indicate a plan's not going to go the distance? And how often do you catch them when new clients walk through the door?
I want to jump in real quick. For those listeners that don't know, I don't know that anybody knows, but it's official that my daughter did get engaged here a week or so ago. And this past weekend, we went and looked at a couple of venues. And I'm not kidding you. The first one, if you notice your feet are sticking to the floor, I wiped my foot a couple of times. I'm looked down. I'm like, what in the world? It felt like my shoe was sticking to the carpet. I thought I had something on it, to be honest with you. I'm like, oh, sis, I don't know. What'd you think of that place? She says, Dad, that place wasn't the greatest. So, it's funny that we're talking about that today, but that's real. And I didn't think it would be, but it is real.
Well, I've been watching that show Bar Rescue, and I see them going into a lot of these restaurants. I'm like, it makes you really want to think about where you go to.
Yeah.
Because there is definitely some red flags out there in a lot of these locations. But when you're looking at it as a healthcare provider, financial advisor, an insurance agent, I'd say that there's red flags that we see too. Some of them that are in retirement plans and won't last that long. And, I think part of the ways that we take a look at of catching them is, number one is, I think, staying current with the times, reviewing. A lot of those bars that you look at, they just don't take dedicated time to review, clean, and deep down. Either they have a great, perfect environment. The same. I know that we've run into a handful of people. And if we look at, say, the difference between like a Medicare supplement or an Advantage plan, there's been a lot of differences over the years. In fact, even going into 2025, if you look at what some of the changes are that they're rolling out with, one of the red flags is if you have a Medicare or a supplemental plan and you haven't reviewed it, I would say in more than 3 years.
Oh, yeah.
You want to definitely take a look at it. In the perfect world, a red flag is, maybe not looking at your health insurance on an annual basis, but certainly if you haven't looked at it in 3 years, good idea to get together and take a look at it. When we look at it from an investment perspective, some of the things that I see, number one, is a lack of diversification. So you can have a red flag when a portfolio is really heavily invested, like in one type of asset class. That could be having all of their money in equities. I met a couple recently that actually came to our open house that we had for Medicare. He was nice enough to ask for a portfolio analysis. And when I did the portfolio analysis, what I noticed that since he transitioned into retirement 2 years ago, he hasn't made any changes with his investment. Now, he left it all in the stock market. In 2024, the stock market has done pretty good, but the problem is he's switching gears, meaning that he's not putting money into his 401k anymore. He's now taking money out of the account. So the concern, the red flag there is if there's poor performance in the stock market, he could negative compound the account, not only lose a bunch of money when the market went down, also could end up accelerating that loss by taking withdrawals. The second thing, but I think has become better in the industry is, high fees and hidden cost. When we think of the high fees and hidden costs in healthcare, it's a matter of, I think, you trying to explain to people the transparency, making sure that they understand, what the plan covers
Right.
and what's not covered.
Yeah, we go through that a lot because a lot of people have no idea what their plan that they've been on for, 3, 5, even 10 years. Well, I didn't know that I had that. You mean I've had this all along? So it's kind of surprising that people don't really understand and know everything that they're getting and what they have available to them. And that's why we do our annual reviews. And some people want to talk in more detail, and some people are okay with just a simple phone call saying, "Hey, has anything changed?" But staying in touch with somebody, if you're not staying in touch, that's definitely a red flag when it comes to healthcare. But like you said, Nolan, lack of diversification and the hidden fees in that. A lot of people, I gotta believe, when you're on a employer 401k, it's kind of a set it and forget it, right? I mean, people coming up to retirement, it's like, Troy and I uncover, do you have a financial advisor? And they may not even advisor. There's a red flag. And the other thing is, I don't have an advisor, but I've got a 401k. I'm going to need to do something with it. That's where we can really help with those 401k rollovers.
Yeah, and when you're looking at hidden fees and cost, it could be, 401ks, variable annuities, private investments, third-party money managed plans. I mean, there's red flags out there, including high management fees, administrative costs, or other hidden charges. And concern is that those fees can erode what your total return is over time. And again, I think that's one of the great things about us is we take that comprehensive approach where you're looking at, how do we save money on health insurance costs? You're taking a look at, how do we help protect them from long-term care and not have their assets wiped out from long-term care? And I'm looking at trying to minimize fees and expenses. And when you get that positive compound effect working, not only do you turn red flags off, you turn them into green flags and, put a lot more money back in people's pocket. On the investment side, one of the things that I see out there because of the explosion of social media, although fraud's been around for a long time, if you look at the history of, Ponzi schemes and frauds, there's been some out there. But the red flag that I'd have is, be careful when you see a plan that consistently offers, high returns with, quote, low risk. That definitely should be a red flag that goes up. And it can, indicate overly aggressive and fraudulent investments. So sometimes you want to be careful of unrealistic expectations. Now, that could be not only the ad that you see, but it also could be an unrealistic expectation from a client and what they are expecting their advisor to do. I had met somebody here that recently came into the office, and I was asking them about the two different advisors that they have, and they have one guy who's out on Wall Street in New York, and his answer back to me was, well, as long as the guy makes me 15% every year, I'd say he's doing his job. And I was like, well, I was kind of surprised that 15% was his number because this gentleman is retired. I did the portfolio analysis, and on the statements, it actually shows the significant losses that this New York advisor has had for this client. And I think the reason being is he's taking these overly aggressive investment moves that typically involve the high potential returns, but they have the high potential for losses as well. And it may be okay to have a little bit of money involved in something that's a little bit more high risk, but in general, in retirement time, you want to have more consistency and predictability versus some of the higher risks that's out there. Another one is a red flag is not doing, contingency plan. So unexpected things are going to happen. When we look at medical emergencies, going back to what you were talking about earlier is knowing what your maximum out of pocket expenses are, making sure that you have a bucket of money that's designed for that. But also the same thing would be true from health insurance, knowing that the fact that, one of the red flags in retirement is not having your nursing home expenses. And a lot of times people think, well, if I have nursing home expenses, I've got Medicare or a supplement and I'm going to get covered. And that actually, in many cases, is something that's not covered when you look at your traditional Medicare coverage.
Yeah, not at all. Like we've said many times, the long-term care coverage is not included in Medicare. In fact, you go into a skilled nursing facility, you've got 100 days, So a lot of people say, well, what happens at 101? Well, two things can happen. One, they're going to do everything they can to boot you out of there. They're not physically going to pick you up and move you out, but you become self-pay at that point. And that is a big, big daily number that can absolutely blow up your assets in your portfolio moving forward. So you got to pay attention to that.
And this one is something that's probably more relevant in the last couple of years than what it was in the past, and that's insufficient inflation protection. The red flag is your plan hasn't really looked at and stress test how inflation is going to impact the long-term success of your ability, and not owning investments that are able to keep up with purchasing power. That's going to erode your retirement savings, reduce your ability to maintain your standard of living. For younger folks like you, Troy, one of the things that I told Andrew is when he got in the 401k plan, put a bunch of money aside, as much as you possibly can, up until the point where it's a little bit painful. Make sure you increase your savings rate, because it's going to be so much easier to max out those contributions today versus waiting till later in life. Lack of professional guidance. I had somebody in the office that had come in, and it was a new gentleman. We were looking at his statements, and on his beneficiary form for his retirement account, he had listed not a person, he had listed as trust. And generally, I don't see that happen that way. Normally, on a retirement account, you'd list your spouse as primary beneficiary, maybe the children or a trust as contingent. But what he has said to me, he went back to his attorney, confirmed the information. We were able to help show him how to get that fixed. Had he not had that fixed, it would have been a disaster for his family to have that tax time bomb go off, and the money wouldn't have gone the way he wanted it to.
Sure.
But that, when he came back in, one of the things that he stuck out to me is like, I'm a physical therapist. This is not what I do. I'm good at that. And I said, exactly, this is what I'm good at. So I am biased, but getting that professional guidance from you guys on the health insurance or from our team on the financial side is able to kind of help be able to put it all together. All the things down to withdrawal strategies, tax implications, the dependency of your employer-sponsored plan, certainly anybody who promises you guaranteed returns and overlooking healthcare costs. These are all things that add up. And that is why what we did is we created the Retirement Team Action Plan. And so with the Retirement Team Action Plan, we're going to take a look at taxes, estate planning, asset protection, and money management. Half of it is we're going to look for can we add value to what you're doing. It's maybe once you get your health insurance in place, again, the guy's taking a look at an asset protection plan for a nursing home. We're also going to look for red flags, so things that jump out, like if you have those excess fees and expenses that you're not aware of, we can point those out. If you're within 5 years of retirement time and you're worried about, are there any red flags? We would love to put together a retirement team action plan for you and share that information on where there could be some red flags, because some of those you only get one shot at getting it right.
Sure, right.
Like the example of the guy's estate plans when he had in writing. Other areas can cost you tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of your lifetime. So just give our office a call, say you want the retirement team action plan, and we'll make that happen for you.
The good news is that if you do encounter, or if the guys at America's Retirement Headquarters encounter any of these red flags in your financial plan, it is not like with a restaurant and things, assigned to turn tail or run. It is something that just needs to be addressed sooner rather than later to course correct to get you towards having, that retirement that you've envisioned. That retirement team action plan, again, available to you if you're within 5 years of retirement. Just give a call, schedule a time to speak with them, and ask for that retirement team action plan. 419-794-3030. You can also reach out on the web, and that is arhq.com.